Good morning, hello everybody, welcome back to another development session where we will continue working on Notula. So last time we were working on the registration part. I did finish that one. So it's mainly cleanup of the UI I did, and so that's all good now. And so the next step would of course be for a user to be able to log in. For that, I am going to use the OAuth 2 implementation of Spring Boot itself. I haven't really used this one before. In the past, I have always written my own OAuth 2 implementation kinda, where I did all of the work myself. But I'm curious to know how this works, what I can do with it, and how much I like it or dislike it. So I've prepared some stuff, but I've commented it out because I don't really know exactly what I need. So we'll see on that later. Of course, first, what we will do is we'll actually start working on the new parts. Yes, which is in session, because that's how I want to do my login. I know all my endpoints for login, authentication, and whatever are a bit unorthodox, because normally you would put them under one /auth path or something, but I decided not to do it because I wanted to go full RESTful, and in the end, if you think about it, the /auth/login, that's not RESTful, /auth /register. I mean, like, it's not, these are actions, these are not resources. And then you have, of course, the password reset and those kind of things. So I don't want to do that. So I'm going to try to map them to something that fits better on the actual that actually fits better to the actual resources that you are manipulating. So that's why the account creation was under user, because you actually create a user. Kind of makes sense to me. Okay, so yes. I will extend base controller. Currently, it doesn't really do much for me, in that sense that it is just a complete empty class. But the idea is that eventually things should move there, but I have to think about which logic actually goes there, since at the moment I don't see much common use. This one will probably be, this one will probably be part of it, that you can more easily do stuff like this. Or at least this part or something. I want to move some stuff there. I'm not sure how to do this yet, because like this only has one parameter. It could be that you have multiple parameters. So I'm actually curious to know whether this actually does allow names substitution. Anyway, none of that matters today. So we are going to focus on actually creating sessions, and the best way to do that is by actually starting at the bottom. A repository. I think we always went for. I think we just no, not even a CRUD repository. Did we go for a? This is an interface. Do we go for a regular repository? I think so, right? Yeah, maybe we also went for a repository. This is also a bit unorthodox, maybe, because normally you would say like, well, why don't you use like a CRUD repository? You have a JPA repository, you have a like a paging and whatever. You have the list CRUD repository. You have so many other types of repositories that offer you and allow you to do so many things and offer you already so many functionality out of the box. And all of that is nice if you actually need it and if you can actually use it. But what I've come to learn is that in a um, multi-tenant system, you need to have a way to only give the user access to only his or her own resources. For instance, I don't want to, well, the user for a different session, session, of course, creating session also doesn't matter. But if you have actual resources, and we'll see that if you want to log out, for instance, that's basically a deletion of a session, then, well, you don't want a user to be able to delete a session of another user. So how do you do that? Well, the session is linked to a certain user ID, so you need to have a check on that user ID. Well, maybe not so much for deletion, because the fact that you already fetched it. So maybe then for your find, you'll do it. I mean, like, you don't just want to find a session ID based on a key. You probably, because a key, even though almost impossible to guess, can still be guessable. So you want to have the extra restriction, say like, yeah, but this user actually says he comes in with this JOT token, so we know the user ID, which you cannot fake because the JOT token has been signed and has been verified. But so like using that user ID, you can look up a session or look up all sessions, and then you can delete them and whatever and stuff. But so that's where you can't just do a find by ID, because then you would assume that the ID itself is strong enough, and I don't do that. Same, for instance, if you're actually going to start looking at meetings and whatever and those kind of things, you don't want to just find all meetings. You want to find all meetings that belong to that organization. Same for organization. You don't want to just find all organizations. You want to find the organization the user belongs to. Period. I mean, like, and so those kind of things, like the defaults that are offered by a CRUD repository, yeah, well, then you would have like a list all and a find by ID and a get all by whatever and stuff, or a get all, and like, yeah, these are not the methods I want. I want to have a find all, but I want to have a find all with a user ID, or I want to find all with an organization ID. So anyway, I do new file. This is the session ba.java. That's a class indeed. And at entity. No autocomplete. Sessions, yes. Okay, wait, then it's not at the entity that you do it. It is at the entity name. Yes, okay. No, I'm gonna just copy paste all of this. There's no Irish constructor, should be private. I'm trying to format, but I keep forgetting. Okay. Keep forgetting which keyboard shortcut. Yeah. Shortcut keyboard bindings keyboard shortcut it is. So at the moment you can see that my hot reloading is failing. That's probably because of the, yeah, makes sense. I would think that this also would fail. Why is it not even part of the import? So I'm going to the user, I'm going to just do exactly this. I'm not so sure if a session really needs an ID, since because I'm thinking, yeah, maybe best for a session to have an ID. Why can I not? What the hell? What is this? This is the wrong repository. No wonder it wasn't working. Okay. So technically now it should be working again. Yes. Okay. So repository is basically present, but it doesn't do anything. So our storage gateway, which is an add service, which takes the private final session repository, and then we have the constructor. Yes, and that's it. Then you have the session service, which is also a service. the storage gateway. Okay, and then you have the controller, and the controller takes in the service, and we are done. Well, we are done wiring everything up. Then now I create a new folder for DTO and a new folder for the BDO, which is currently still empty. So what's the first thing you want to do? You want to actually make an endpoint for a create. So that is a add post, add sessions. I'm going to call it create. And this should actually be like a login request. Funny enough, that actually is the exact same as my user DTO. You log in with email password. So you would think, you might think that this is, we might gonna reuse this object, but I prefer not to, because maybe at some point I'm gonna change my create user and say like, well, you shouldn't just fill in email and password, but maybe I want to tell them to also fill in their name. Maybe I also want to, this is something I have to fix. Did I discuss that last time? That this whole constraint part, there was a big bug with it, well, a big issue, and I had to change it from non-null or not null to not blank, because apparently blanks were a valid email. Who would have guessed? For password, it was not necessary, but I did do it anyway. I guess this kind of means that a password of 8 spaces is no longer valid. Interesting. Interesting side effect. I don't think I have written a test for that. Let's go to test. Well, this of course is not. This does not have test. It's my BDO that has. But my BDO, does my BDO actually have that same restriction? See, my BDO does not have that same restriction. My BDO actually has. Oh, the password will have the restriction. The BDO does not have that restriction. So in my BDO, I am perfectly fine to say valid, and I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is probably a valid password. Should it be though? Maybe it should. So maybe I should update my controller test. Server error, email invalid, password invalid, short password missing. I don't really have much tests here for valid email to verify that this is valid. What I'm going to do is password invalid. I'm just going to take one here. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever. I can make it very long. If this test, if both pass, then there's something wrong. This should fail basically, see? And we'll verify this by if we go to the actual user, the create user DTO, which I can't find anymore. I say not blank, not null, and then in the size. That matters. For an email, it does matter. And so this is an invalid email. Yes, and then you can see here, password equals spaces, I guess, is invalid. This one should work if you do all spaces. I had difficulties with that. That you say like, oh yeah, for instance, also like an empty string. It was this here, the null and empty source. The empty source was actually triggering. So here as well, empty is not allowed. That's because it's just Tuk, tuk, tuk. So yeah, do we want to check this? Well, yes, because and that's what I kind of hate. I kind of miss a blank source. Like I don't just want to test null and empty. I also want to test a blank. And a blank, you can say like, oh, yeah, okay, what do you actually want to test with blank? Well, you can do spaces, you can do whatever, you can do so many things, of course. You can do no lines. Am I? Um, Give me a second. I just noticed that I might be offline. Nope. Okay, I'm live. It's a bit weird. My own stream was not showing up to be live. Okay. So anyway, so we fixed some logic here, which I just spotted because of that. So, and all of that is just to say that my DTO, my login DTO, I'm not going to call it login, I'm going to say it create session. It's more consistent naming. You will see that I might at some point again introduce my nested structure. We will see when and if I do, because the problem is, or the thing is, like these are very small objects, and while I do like small objects, sometimes I think you can have two small files as well. This becomes a record, and then I tend to opt for grouping stuff together. This currently is not needed yet, so the email, I think I've already put in common domain email password. Yes, that was good. Okay, so if you go back to the controller, you will see that this is the request body, similar as what we've done in the user controller. You have here all of this, and technically, well, basically I can copy paste this. Did I call it create? Yes, I called it create as well, so that's good. Just much easier. This is a response entity, and that is a void at the moment. I have to think about this because I can't. I actually want to return the jot at this endpoint, and I think I can return session information and session stuff, but we'll have to see. This has to be an at valid request body create session DTO, and I'm gonna also call this the request, and then all of this I will put in here, but I'm gonna comment out, and I'm gonna say return response okay, whatever. Why is that? Because now we're actually gonna start the whole test-driven development part. So what does that mean? You say you go to tests, generate tests, generate 5, yes. Okay. And then maybe, okay, I'm gonna try something. I have my user controller, I say go to tests, because I know the user controller test should be very similar to the session controller test. I'm gonna close a couple of things which I currently don't need. And I am gonna let AI do it for me. Write tests for the session controller like was done for the user controller. Let's see if AI, in this case ChatGPT, just GPT-5 Mini, can do it. I don't know which model is the best. I really don't know. That's something we might be able to do as well. Oh, and beginning of the session, I also created my instructions GitHub instructions, which hopefully should lead to a bit of a better AI, because now I can tell it also like, no, write it like this, do this, remember this, save this for future times, and yeah. So hopefully it will learn, and so hopefully in the future I don't have to tell it like, oh yeah, do it like this, because now it's reading the user controller test. It's like, I've read it, okay, so now it's gonna do exactly the same. This also, like, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure this actually should become part of. Uh, why is this even protected? Because I think the initial plan was to also do an abstract test. That's what I've done in the past. Oh, we should definitely do that. Maybe tomorrow. In the session of tomorrow, we might just want to rewrite this controller test, or just controller test. Yes, controller test, which we then have to put somewhere. We controller test, and this is like an endpoint test will extend, and then it will do like server error. Server error is even possible. Server error, and then we can. The idea is that you actually get a lot of these things for free. But then I have to think how I'm gonna do the actual requests. I think then you have to say like you implement like a get request. Yeah, the thing is these are invalid requests, so these are there's a difference between so this actually is a bad request, is a bad name. Because it's now a duplicate entity exception. That's only for the create. So maybe for the create, I will do like create endpoints, delete endpoints, those kind of things. But so anyway, and they might extend another abstract endpoint, which is server error. What the hell is it doing? It seems to be creating a lot of data, a lot of code. Session controller, it has changed session controller. Why? Okay, fine. We'll see what it does later. It's still working. But anyway, so I was saying like the endpoints, that's something definitely do. The only problem that you have typically with those kind of things is that, well, you have to be able to do this kind of things. So you need to know which method is being invoked. Well, you need to have specify a body, and then yeah, this one you can easily get rid of it. But that's what I want to avoid, that like this kind of things, that I forget to implement it. Header should always be the server plus the endpoint slash and then the thing. Okay, let's see what he did. He created an endpoint. Okay, where is the server? The server is not there. He created a mock MVC. Let's just say keep. Let's look at it. Formatting is awful. That's definitely something I have to still teach him then, apparently. Okay, fix the formatting. Server is stuff to do nothing. What? Okay, that's not really what I would have done, I guess, but that's the whole point. I don't understand why he actually implemented that, because the test will first fail. Yeah, okay, yeah, so here he did. Okay, and this is where also the whole test user comes in. Because it is the user that will create. Is it the user that creates the session? Good question. So this one we have to fix post. That's also very, no, I don't say very bad formatting when I already formats the file. So yes, performance status is okay. Well, technically should be created. I'm not going to do this. I should. I'm also already going to do this. Location header. That's wrong. Why won't you import the correct one? What also happens to my server? Ah, he probably didn't need it because he never checked it. Ah, yes, okay. So I understand why he didn't implement it. Why he didn't do it. But so you can already see that there is quite some duplication going on. But that's okay. And then I have to, where is my here? Comments. What do I need? I need header and I need content. We just whack them in here. And then I will okay. I should also see, nope, that's the correct importing, that's good. Okay, expected response, that one I still have to implement. Expected response, where did it actually come from here even? Yes, get response, get body, get response, that's what we created, yes, okay. Oh, right, because we didn't implement it on the test user even. We said get body of this user, so that's where it's even better. Server error, do throw, runtime exception, and create. Yeah, that's ridiculous. I'm also not gonna do this yet. Body, get the body. Yeah, I mean, okay, so this I'm gonna change. Let's get body, and then here I say tests or user. Yes, here as well I say get body user. Internal server error, that is correct. Email invalid. Yeah, if you log in with an invalid email. Get body email. How do I do that here? Get body user email. Ah, yes. And then here it is. User dot get passwords dot value. Okay, status is bad request. Yes. My 80 lines is, even on this screen, tiny bit too much. I need a bigger screen so I can fit 80 characters. Or I can just collapse this for now. Yes, that's a bit of a cheaper option. So this, like, I don't understand why he wants to actually do this. He wants to run the tests on that file. I was like, don't. Oh, so he's still gonna do more stuff. Oh, damn! I'm already changing your files. What do you still want to do? I say continue. User dot get email dot value. Okay, and then this is correct. The bad request. That's password invalid, email invalid. Question is, should we even care about? Yes, we should care about the length of the password. We want to enforce the exact same restrictions on everything. And that was one of the things I also mentioned last time. I was like, not sure whether I want to do my DTO checks like this or whether I want to do them in a more centralized way. Because if you look at it now, you have the create user DTO. Here you have email validation, you have password validation, but on the password you have password validation, on the email you have email validation. You have the exact same checks. And then now here on the create session, you have again, you have email validation, you have password validation. There's no point. So I think what I might do is I might centralize them, and instead of saying like the create user DTO, this validation, I might move it to like have checks here, password dot is valid. I think I might do something like this, or I actually might try to, I might experiment with this to see whether, because it's a record, whether I can provide a constructor that takes a string and converts immediately to email password. That would be an option as well. I'm not sure that's going to work. Probably won't work in all cases because you still want to have a certain validation for things. But well, we'll see that in a next session as well. So the only thing that now we have missing here is the get body, and here you have the get response, which I'm quickly gonna copy. Not that it matters, because the get body here only has the. Okay, so I do no autocomplete. Okay, well, I want to get the body first. Yes, okay, that's good. And then I do here privacy and get response, which I honestly don't even know what my response is going to be, so I'm going to be returning an empty string. That's it for now. The goal is not to make these tests pass, the goal actually is to make the tests fail. And why is that? Because first of all, I don't return anything. I don't return created, I don't return thingy, so email invalid. This actually already means that we've done already too much, but that was to be expected, because if you check our, why do I have session controller test open on twice? If you look at the session controller, which actually still has changes, then we already did validation on the actual object, which also should be final. Did I not do that on the user controller? Yes, no, I didn't. So it doesn't really matter, because the caller is not going to do anything with this object. It's checks an object, whatever. I just like to have my objects final. Why is that? So that I know throughout the entire method that this object is the same as what's entered. Whether they're mutable or not, that's a whole different story and a whole different discussion. But anyway, so I mean, like, it makes sense that all of these tests, except for the validation, then that they all fail. Even here, the error. Where's my bad request? Well, of course, I'm also not going to call it bad request. I'm going to rename it. In the controller test. Instead of bad request, I'm going to say duplicate entity. Okay, and then I'm going to copy paste this and edit it. Okay, when session service create session. Oh, it's a bit stupid. No, why does state create user? You think the user server is going to create anything else but the user? That's something maybe to fix as well. Naming. It should just be user service dot create. Okay, but that's something we can also do next session, some fine, or I can do it offline. Yes, okay, so create any then for duplicate entity exception, yes. Of course, this fails. Why does this fail? Because the session service doesn't have a create method, and that's exactly what you want. A test that doesn't compile is also a failing test. So yeah, here as well, I mean, like, I am gonna immediately fix it. I put a body first, but not there. Why did I do this inconsistency? I am gonna fix my inconsistency, and I'm gonna do my mocking first, and then I'm saying, this is the body. Here I did it as well. I don't know why I did it there. It's a bit weird. Okay, and then I can copy paste this up, and I say then throw runtime exception, and then this can go away, and this should, yeah, so should we create this is exactly correct. Server endpoint response, yes, get body, and then here it is when session, then return, and I should return so then I will probably have a private static final test session object session, and actually this might just replace my that is so stupid. This might replace my test user because my test session will be linked to a user. I mean, a session will be linked to a user no matter what. A session might actually even be linked to a user and an organization. Organization we don't have yet, but it's okay. A session does not always have to be linked to an organization. It can be that you are logged in and you are not part of a session yet. So then return null for now. Oh, to do check, I have to leave the to do be there. Okay, so these are failures. Why is that? Because if we go to the session, well, session controller shouldn't use it yet. Session service, then we will see here. Fine. Keep. I'm gonna tell him from now on. I'm gonna also okay. Now on, do not add any comments in the code. So now we have created the create method, which doesn't do anything. That's okay, because we can just completely mock it. Yeah, it's a void. That's not okay. And this actually should be like a session, same as what we've done for the user service. Well, you'll see that actually does like, well, a user login. There was a user login object. There is a user login object. I guess I also want to use a user login here. Create. So I'm curious to know whether he now indeed won't do any. Understood. I will not add any comments to code in future edits. Why you what? Undo. I don't care about this. So yeah, technically this is a user login as well, but I don't want. How is that even? Wait. How is that even user login? That doesn't make any sense. This is the register part. It shouldn't be a user login. This should be the register. This is a bad name. I think in the past sometimes I would have done like pass in the full BDO. For instance, here now create session, you would say like where's my session service? Then you say like, well, actually here I want to pass in a session. The problem is you don't have the information to actually create a session, which is different from other entities. In other entities, for instance, if you have a meeting, you'll say create this meeting, then you have the name, description, whatever, and those kind of things. And then if you say give me the meeting, get meeting, then you'll actually return the exact same object. In that case, you can use the same object. In this case, because the information you pass in to create a session is completely different from the information you actually get back about the session, because the session contains tokens, IDs, and whatever and things, and this contains something completely different. So this actually should be a user login object, but not this user login object. But I am going to copy paste it. But I have to fix this because this is not a user login. This doesn't make any sense. This is not a login, it's a register. So here I have to fix, not fixing it with AI, quick fix, correct package declaration. See, my editor can do this much faster. So this is the correct thing. Oh yeah, and then of course, it's a bit annoying because I copied it. That of course also means that I have to copy paste the tests. Quick fix, correct package declaration, session linear. So now this is confusing because this user login, it will be the correct one, but you can't tell. And of course, everything remains exactly the same. I mean, the test will work. Why is that? Because we literally just copy pasted it. We copy pasted everything. So this is a bit weird, but that's because you have duplicate objects. Again, I've mentioned it many times before in my blog posts and everywhere. Code duplication is not per se bad. Code duplication is bad if it's about semantic duplication. That is, that you create multiple objects or multiple pieces of code that have the same meaning. Just because two pieces of code do the same thing doesn't mean they mean the same thing. A good example, so for instance here, my DTOs, that is semantic duplication. That's why I don't like it, and I want to think about fixing it. Why is that? Because they all check email addresses. They all check for the same rules. I have now spread it out over so many different parts. In a certain way, it's not really, the DTOs don't share that logic, but it's more the logic that I have in my BDO and the logic in my DTO, and that is kind of different, shouldn't be different, should be exactly the same. So that's a bit duplication. Between DTOs, there is no real duplication because it's at email annotation, so there is no logic in there. But so in other locations, which I don't really have yet, you might do things. You might do checks, you might do logic, and just because with logic it's more difficult because of course you do exactly the same thing. So like if you do exactly the same thing, you mean the exact same thing. But especially here with objects, if you have, for instance, I say a password. Oh, a password is at least 8 characters. Maybe I want to enforce that the name of the meeting is also 8 characters at least, and then you will have the exact same object. Like, oh, it's a record, it's called name, it's a value, min length of 8, and whatever and stuff. You might think like, well, it's the exact same object. So why don't you create like a more generic object that is like string, like a minimal string or whatever. And like, yeah, okay, but maybe at some point I want to enforce my passwords to not be 8, but like 10 characters, but I don't want to have the same change for my name. A very good example, for instance, also like weight, length. I mean, weight and length, neither of them can be negative. So you might think, well, okay, so I put those checks in there, but then I don't have a weight object and I have a length object and do the exact same checks. So maybe I should just create one object out of it. Like, no, although they never will be a case where weight can be negative and length can be negative. Well, length theoretically could, but not if you're talking about a person. You still want to have the same different objects. Why? Because you have compiler safety by using the different objects. And in the end, you might enforce other things. You might say like weight should always be less than a certain amount, length should be always less than a certain amount, things like that. Is your length, is your weight, is that in kilo, is that in pounds, is that, there are many things that you can actually put in your object instead of just the checks. But anyway, so we have now created an object, the user login object. This one has to be fixed. That's for tomorrow, I guess. And so this is the user login, but I have to make sure I take the correct one, the session one. Et voila. And then here, the methods and open variables void. Yes, that makes sense because this should return now here the session object. And then the session object is here in the video new file session of Java. And then hopefully, ta-da, it all compiles. So our tests are not working, but we are getting there. So I'm going to stop here for now. I will see you again tomorrow. Bye.